All right, I can share my screen now. So now we have our second project, which is a little bit harder. It's going to use some if statements to basically ask the user for their age. And then after that, it'll tell you like what level of school you're in. So I'll just make a new project and we'll call this like level of school. Okay. All right. And basically for this one, we're gonna begin by asking the user for their age. So we're gonna set age equals input. We'll put in what is your age, and then basically we did this for the last one. It's just gonna ask the person for their age, and it'll take that number, and then it'll just store it. Now with that, we want to add a section where it's gonna basically compare your age to a bunch of like groups, and then it'll tell you like what grade or what level of school you're in. So for example, we'll go with if age is greater than, or we'll say like less than 4, we can go print, you are likely not in school. And I think we have to put integer just so that they're always numbers. So now if we run our project and we say like our age is 2, then it'll tell us you're likely not in school. And then since we want to add more if statements, we're going to call them elif, which is the same thing as saying like a second if statement. And we're going to ask if they're like less than, actually, wait, we should put if they're greater than or equal to 4 and less than or equal to, let's say like 5, that would be they're in like preschool. So we'll go and print. And then we can do the same for the other ones. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. And we'll change the age groups. So I think it was 5 to 11, 11 to 14, 14 to 17. And then we'll add one more. We'll just call it else. So this means if you're older than 17, it won't do any of the if statements and it'll just go straight to the else. And oh yeah, we have to tab each one of these just so the indentation is proper. And we'll change this so that when you're from 5 to 11, you're likely in elementary school. And then we'll fill out that for each one. So now that we have this much, it's going to ask you for your age, and we can give it any of these numbers. We'll say, for now, we'll say like 19. That means it's not going to go through any of these because the ages doesn't fit the parameters that we set for it. And it'll go straight to the else statement saying that we've graduated from high school. Does anyone have any questions or errors in their code?
I would like to ask that what is the purpose of our coding?
I think your internet cut out. You can put it in the chat if or you can. Yeah, I think we heard some of it and then it cut off. You can try putting your question in the chat as well. And if you want to go back to the slides, I can just show them two things about the if statement and then the so yeah, this is just basically what that is stemming off of. I don't think we explained this fully, but yeah. So this is basically what your code is doing. So instead of if A and B are we're doing like age. So we're basically saying here it's just saying if B is greater than A. This happens. And an elif is just a way of saying like adding two ifs because we can't have two if statements that are connected in the same thing. So elif is just basically two different what's it called? Two different like A equals B or B can be greater than A. You can put two different responses, or if it's none of them, which means A is greater because it's not equal to or less than, then that's what the else is. So it's basically else is the last thing. If the if and elifs are all false. So that's basically what our code is doing. If your age is over a certain amount, then it's just going all the way down to the else statement, which is again if all the other ifs and elifs don't work. And then if the can you go down two slides if shows the all the one more. Yeah, and these are also the functions we're using for um this. So greater than is wait, one second, let me check your questions wrong. Um but that's the purpose of the code. Yes,
So
yeah,
basically, these are just like small projects that will lead up to actual chatbots. Because in like modern chatbots that are very advanced, they're gonna like basically take your inputs and based on that, they'll have like a predetermined like answer that they'll give you. And based on what you're saying, it'll change what they answer. But this is just like a basic version where we explain with like simple inputs the way that a chatbot would actually work.
yeah. So we're just going to use these foundations so that when you guys create your final projects, you have all this code to look back to so that you can create a more complex chatbot. But yeah, for this chatbot, our goal, if you just go back to the code, is just to show it's just a very simple thing asking of age, and then it'll tell you what school you're in. And you can play around out throughout the week and kind of change these inputs and outputs and really make them whatever you want. It doesn't have to be about school. But again, this is just to get everyone into learn Python basics, and then we'll use all of these codes to create our more complex Java. So yeah, if you guys have any errors in your code or any questions about the specific if statements, else statements, or any syntax questions, you can just put it in the chat or send us a picture of the code. Yeah, and then we can answer those. So elif is basically so I can explain in the sequence of the code. So starting on line 5, the code will read it as if the age is 4, then we'll do this. But if their age is not, if the age is not less than 4, it'll just go down to the code will just read the next line, which is just another condition. So yeah, it's not really a comparison. It's more of like it's another condition adding on to your if statement. So then it'll just move on. If you're not less than 4, then it'll just move to the next line, and then it'll just keep going down the sequence of your lines. And then if all of those if and else statements are false, then it will print out the else line. So elif is just more, it stands for else if, meaning it's just more conditions you're adding to your if statement. And the code will read it in a sequence. So the order would matter just in maybe not for this one, but it would matter for which one would go first. But yeah, basically more conditions to add to your if statement. Yeah, we were just waiting, just in case anyone had any questions. Is your code all set, Saran? If so, we can move on. We just want to make sure everyone had the project all set so we can continue.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, we were just we can move on now. We just wanted to make sure everyone's code is all set. So now yeah, we'll just move on. Yeah.
Okay. So basically we now we're gonna go over if statements. Well, we already went over if statements. We'll go over like the Boolean operators that we use for if statements, for loops, and while loops. Basically, Boolean operators are gonna either compare two things or tell you if something's true or false. And in this case, we have the double equal sign, which is the symbol for like if something is equal to something else. So if we had before, like A is equal to B, you'd put the double equal signs to say like if it is equal to. There's the and symbol, which is just to combine two different comparisons or conditions. We have the exclamation mark with the equal sign, which is the not equals. So if you want to say like if something is not equal to something else, you'd put if A is exclamation mark equals B. That would basically compare them if they're not equal. Then we have less than and greater than, which are both just the less than or greater than symbols. And then if you want to put or equal to, you just put the equal signs after them. So those are the main Boolean operators we're going to be using. There's like a couple more, but you'll mostly just be using these. Now we have for loops. These are basically functions that, well, in a parameter, it'll like the function will be continuing. So in this case, for x is in fruits, it's gonna print what x is, right? So in this case, we're setting the parameter for if the variable is in the list or the array called fruits. And if it is, then it'll do the function that is printed below. So that's basically how for loops work. We have while loops, which are similar to for loops, but these will continually go on. So as long as that condition is met, it will continue to run that part of the code until that condition becomes false. And we have a project for this, which is a storyline, which we can make with a bunch of for loop, if statements, and while loops. So basically, this will ask, it has we have two variables at the top. We're just listing out what they are. We have variables for a bunch of strings, just so that when the user types them in, they will come out properly. So we can run this and it should basically print out what our storyline is. So you need some school supplies for the next school year, and you want to get some notebooks and binders. So what school will you go, what store will you go to? There's Market 1 or Market 2, and then it asks you to type one of them. So let's say Market 1. And then it says you go to the nearest store and then find that notebooks and binders are above your budget. So you're only able to buy the notebooks with the amount of money you have, and will still have to buy the notebooks. So do you want to go to a different store, or will you just buy them from there? And then you can either put in buy or a different store. So now it says you bought only your notebooks, but luckily you still had enough money to buy, well, without the binders. So then you can buy binders. And that's how the story ends. And then there's a try again, which you can just say yes. And then it'll replay the entire thing. So we can make a simple project or storyline by just using a bunch of if and while statements. So we'll call this storyline. Now, to begin with, we want to have our basically a question asking them, do they want to play this game? So we'll just call it like begin equals input. Do you want to play this game? And we'll just put the Y or N, that way they don't have to type out the full yes or no. And then we'll put an if statement, begin equals Y double equals. Then we'll have our next part of the thing. So we'll say, sure, we can keep, let's begin. And then we'll have print, let's say, like you're in a maze. And are stuck between like two paths. Which do you choose? And then we can have another if statement saying if, actually we should put an input right here, input and we'll call it path equals input there. And then we can have if path equals left, we can say like print you're lost in the maze. And then we can have an elif statement, path equals right. We'll have like great, you found your way out of the maze. And then we can have like an else statement saying else. So if they don't say left or right, then that probably means that it wasn't something that you wanted them to say. So then you say print that wasn't an option. Try again. Now we can put an input. So we'll call it try again equals input. Do you want to try again? And then we'll go up here and we should add a statement. So while try again equals y.
Yeah, once we finish this code to address the questions, we'll go over specifically each line so you guys understand. I know it's new, it's a lot of information. Once we finish this code, we'll go through each line by line and just explain what each line is doing so you can all get clarification.
Rooney, I don't know. I think we need to like break it down a little bit because some people are not getting it.
Okay, we'll go over it in just a second.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now this is basically it should work now. So if you say okay, if you say yes, then it will basically say let's begin, and then you put in left, and it'll basically say that. So let's just explain what's going on here. Well, we have this part, which is basically asking the player or the user, do you want to play this game? And it's saying to answer as Y or N for yes or no. So if they put in yes, then it'll say let's begin. And we're creating a try again. So basically, this will keep on going, whatever's underneath. So this section will continue to loop until the statement's false. So since we set the try again equal to Y, which is yes, so it's going to play for the first time. It'll go through your input, which is asking you to pick between left or right. And if you pick left, it'll tell you you're lost. If you pick right, then it'll tell you that you found your way out. And then if you pick one of them that wasn't an option, it'll say try again, and then it'll print out, do you want to try again? So let's just go through what that would be. Say like, if we say the middle, which isn't an option, it'll say that wasn't an option, try again. If you click yes, it'll start from the beginning. And if we do that again and we say no, then it'll just end there.
Yeah, and some of it is also just if statement stuff that we just did. So lines like 10 through 16 and then lines 3 through 5. So it's basically like what I just explained before with if and else statements. So it's asking like if begin equals y for line 3. That's basically just saying like if the user inputs just y, which means yes, it'll print let's begin, what's right below it. And then for line 10, it's just asking if path equals left. So if the user like prints left, then it'll tell you you're lost in the maze. And then elif again is just another condition. So it's just saying if the user doesn't say yes or left, sorry, the user doesn't say left and they say right, that's what elif is saying. And then right, if they type right, then it will print you found your way out. And then right below that else is if they don't say left or right, I mean you can't go any other direction other than left or right. So else again is just if the if statement and the elif statement don't work, then it'll print else, which is saying try again. So because again you can't go for this maze, at least you can't go any other direction, left or right. So those lines are just the if statements that we've learned, and then we're combining that with the loops. Um, is there any specific part you guys want us to explain a little bit more, or I know it's a lot of information, um, but if you guys have any specific questions on if you want us to explain if else statements more, or the loops, or if there's any line you don't understand, you can just ask us in the chat.
Louis, Sina, you managed to keep it.
All right, so yeah, if you guys are typing this on your end, if you run into any errors or questions, again, you can just let us know. And you can share your screen, and we'll help you debug the code. And again, if there's any specific questions you have about any lines of the code or any subjects that we just learned, like the if else statements or the loops, we'll be more than happy to go over it one more time. So just let us know in the chat if you have any questions. But yeah, we'll give you guys 5 or so minutes to try this on your own and try to understand it a little bit more. And if you have any questions, just let us know.
All right, just to go over if anyone had any questions about this. So right now, the beginning is very simple. It's just an if statement. So we have our like name or variable, which we call begin, and we set it to the input of what the user is going to say. And we have, do you want to play this game? And then we're asking them to pick yes or no. So if we say, if the user says yes, right, then it'll print let's begin. So that's the first part of it. Then we have our second part of it is the actual storyline itself. And we have this variable set try again equal to y. And that's basically just saying that try again is yes, and it's like continuing. So while try again equals y or yes, here I'll just turn this into yes or no, so it's easier for everyone to understand. So when try again is yes, then it's going to go through the loop once. So it's going to say, it's going to ask you which direction do you choose. If you pick left, it'll go through this if statement, and then it'll go through because left will not be for the other ones, and it'll go to the beginning again. But since now try again is still yes, it'll continue to go again. So for each one of these, it'll go through it once, and then if this is ever false, then it'll end the story there. So that's why we should have our like try again statement for each one of these. And basically this will just ask the player if they want to play again, and then they'll, based on what they say, it'll either go back to the beginning and start it over again, or if you want it to, you can have like a print statement at the end saying like the end. So now if you say no to try again, then it'll just print out the end, which I can just show real quick. Run. So if you say you want to play the game, yes, and then you're in a maze and you're stuck, you pick like right, okay, I spelled it wrong. Right now it says, great, you found your way out of the maze. Do you want to play again? If you say no, then it'll just say the end and it ends it there. So basically, while this statement is true, it will continue to go through the loop, but as soon as it's like false or you change it so that it's false, it will just continue to the next part. And if there's any other questions, feel free to ask.
So you can try this on your end, and if you run into any errors or syntax, you can just share your screen or send a picture in the chat, and then we can debug it with you. So yeah, again, this meeting link is going to end shortly, probably another 30 seconds. So yeah, you guys can take a few minutes, try it, and then once we're back in the meeting, we can ask any questions, and then if we're ready to move on, we can move